Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for the week of March 5th, 2023. In the Security and Privacy Alerts Department, the Black Lotus bootkit apparently can infect fully patched Windows 11 systems, not to mention, obviously, things less than that. And your favorite neighborhood hacker can go buy or license to use the bootkit for five grand. So this is not the stuff that nation states are the resources a nation state is required. This is just kind of your average run the mill hacker. So and of course that means they have persistence across your computer and your network. Um, and it's based on a vulnerability that Microsoft sort of kind of halfway fixed last year. Um, but hopefully they'll fix it the rest of the way this year. Now that it's kind of become public and may embarrass them more. Speaking of Windows 11, in the software department, Microsoft announces the release of what they're calling Windows 11 Moments 2. This is the 22H2, the second half of 2022. And don't ask me why that comes out in March, because that's not kind of 2022 H2, but this will add new features to Windows 11. Most of them are kind of ho-hum features like tabs and notepad and phone link for iOS and stuff like that. But there is going to be AI powered Bing chat in the Windows taskbar and other features. This will be deployed automatically as part of the March update, whether you like it or not. Um, and so stay tuned for that, but it sounds like some neat features. Also, GitHub has announced the formal release. It had been kind of in a limited release up until now. Ability to scan your code in a public GitHub repository for secrets. Secrets are like hard-coded passwords and SSH keys and API keys and stuff like that. There's a whole long laundry list of things that they can search for. So, if you're using GitHub public repositories, then I would turn this on. This is a pretty good thing, and might make your code a little bit safer if your developers are doing things that they really should not be doing, but they might be doing. Um, Microsoft is releasing what I'm calling a confusing set of patches for Intel CPU flaws. Again, last year, Intel announced a set of vulnerabilities that would allow cross virtual machine data theft. And Microsoft identified scenarios where this vulnerability could be exploited. But at the time, they released patches for Windows Server 2019, 2022. My guess is that's where they figure the vast majority of the risk is, because that's where you have those kind of operating systems running in data centers, and you'd have potentially an untrusted workload that you don't even know is there as a customer. Now Microsoft has released more patches for Windows 10 and Windows 11 and Server that address the problem. So but it's not clear if these patches will be automatically deployed or whether you're going to have to push them yourself. So you might want to read the announcement, understand what the risk is to your environment, and then make a decision whether you're going to deploy them or not. In the legislative and legal department, interesting lawsuits come out. So historically, there's been some effort on the part of certain businesses to try to get people not to write negative reviews on social media about them. This was pretty rampant in the healthcare space, where doctors said in the agreement for providing service, there was language in there that said if you write a negative review, then we can sue you. And businesses have sued people. But it turns out there's this law called the Consumer Review Fairness Act of 2016, which basically makes those clauses illegal and allows you to sue a company that has those clauses in there. And recently someone did that, and needless to say, they won, because the law is pretty black and white. So this is kind of important if you sign agreements or if you write agreements. And I'm guessing most of us do one or the other or both of those. Um, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, engages with private enterprise to go off and do a whole variety of things for them. In this particular case, they were asked to do what's called a red team exercise, where they try to break into a company. And this particular company was a piece of critical infrastructure. They don't say who it was, and apparently had a fairly mature information security program. Nonetheless, CISA was able to break in at two different sites that the company operates out of, and we're able to wander the network horizontally from place to place, get into some key systems and stuff. And now they're sharing what they learned. So, and the beginning of this, of course, is social engineering, employee email attacks, and that sort of thing. But interesting stuff, and certainly an opportunity to learn something about what doesn't work and what does work. In the breaches department, there's always a lot of them. This week's no exception. Uh, Dish Network has some kind of something. Um, they really were super vague. And just before recording this, I looked online. Their website is still down. Rumors are that they've been working literally 24/7 nonstop, trying to get pieces back up. I'm guessing what they're doing is they're rebuilding infrastructure from scratch. They finally admitted it was some kind of ransomware attack. They have not admitted what kind of ransomware attack. They haven't admitted whether or not data has been stolen or not. Um, their satellite business is, I mean, that's a legacy business anyway, with all the new IP technologies out there, but it's been a cash cow for both AT&T, that owns Direct TV, and Charlie Ergen, who owns Dish. I'm sure Charlie is not happy. I'm sure this will cause at least some set of customers to leave. I'm a Dish customer, and I haven't noticed anything other than I can't pay my bill, which doesn't make me terribly sad. Um, but I am sure that this is not making Charlie very happy, and I think that their heads will roll out of this at Dish. And obviously, we'll learn more details later. But if it can happen to Dish, it can happen to you. And the question is, what were they not doing? Next in the breach department, Beeline, who is the 800-pound gorilla in the contingent workforce management space, they were hacked. The hackers have posted already 1.5 GB of data stolen from Beeline, and it included customer data. And the challenge that Beeline has is their customers are people like Amazon and Home Depot and people like that. And in fact, the data that was published included Amazon, Credit Suisse, 3M, Boeing, BMW, McDonald's, Chase, and other companies. Those companies obviously have big enough budgets and big enough legal departments to sue Beeline out of existence. I'm assuming that they will come to some kind of financial agreement at some point in time after this is all done. But I suspect this will definitely hurt Beeline's bottom line. The Wall Street, also in the breach department, the Wall Street Journal's parent was outfoxed by intruders for years. News Corporation, which owns properties like the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, HarperCollins, dozens of other entities, used to own Fox. They spun that off. The intruders were in there for about 2 years. And obviously, the longer the bad guys are in there, the more damage they can do, the more data they can steal. And even if they want to steal data at a low rate, if they're in there for years, even at a low rate, they can steal, terabytes worth of data. Next, a vendor of a European hotel chain left an Elasticsearch database unprotected, and they did not respond. I don't know how many times I have to say this. They did not respond to emails. Researchers discovered 11 gigabytes of unprotected data on a server supporting the hotel chain Falkensteiner. When he contacted them and their third-party provider, Gustafo, they did not respond. However, they did close the hole, so obviously they read the email. They just choose to go dark. Now, the challenge here for them, of course, is that this is Europe. They have to comply with GDPR. they've got, in the stuff that was leaked so far, over 100,000 customers, and I'm guessing the National Data Protection Authority will probably be a little bit more persistent, shall we say, when they reach out to these guys and ask them for information. But this genie is definitely out of the bottle. Next, many companies allow employees to use personally owned computers. The reality of doing that is that it is a super high risk because you have no clue um, what they're doing, what their security practices are, who uses the computer, what kind of software is installed, how often it's updated, on and on and on and on. So while in the short term it looks like you might be saving a few bucks, in the long term you're probably in a situation where you're just asking for trouble. Next, software vendor Synopsys, they sell a software product that allows you to review code that's part of a merger and acquisition deal. And we do that too. They found in the code they looked at least one already known open source vulnerability in 84% of the code they looked at. And this is both in commercial code that the people sell, and a proprietary code that they use internally. 84%, and 48% of the code contained a high risk vulnerability. So, one of the things that during the M&A cycle, people are good at, looking at financials and looking at staffing, stuff like that. They're not so good about looking at cyber. And it's a long risk, right? Because, that risk will go on for as long as you own the company that you bought. And if the company that's selling kind of had a thought but didn't disclose the fact that there were some vulnerabilities there, well, probably they're breaking the law. And certainly, if the contract is well written, they're breaking the contract. But they might do it anyway. And meantime, you're left holding the bag. And unless you can prove that they knew it and they lied, then you're gonna hold the bag. Even if that gets discovered, we saw that with Marriott, with Starwood. Took them what 2, 3, 4 years before they figured out that they'd been had. So okay, that's your call, right? You decide whether that's a risk that you're willing to take, an unbounded risk that goes on forever. Next, the feds have released the much anticipated national cybersecurity strategy. It's very, very encompassing. It's a great strategy. The tasks inside the strategy fall into kind of three categories. One, which the feds can do, which the executive branch can do without Congress's approval. Part of it that definitely will require Congress's approval to move forward on. And another part, which is kind of gray in the middle, and we don't know how aggressive the administration is going to be. If they're like the last administration, their strategy could be, well, we're going to do it, and you can sue us if you want, and whatever. We don't care. We got more money than you do anyway. After all, it is your money that we're throwing away by letting you sue us. So it'll be interesting to see. It's very well, very, very well put together. One of the things that they want to do in this strategy, and I think this will require congressional approval, is to make big companies much more liable for the damage they do through bad code. Up until now, if you buy a car and it's defective, the car maker is responsible. If you buy a washing machine and it's defective, the washing machine maker is responsible. It's very hard to find any industry other than software where the maker of the product has no responsibility for anything. And that's just insane. What that does, of course, is it motivates the software makers to cut corners. And that's, in fact, what they do. Gee, there's a big surprise. So, if they can come up with a way to pull this off and get to the point where software makers are now more responsible, whatever that means, than they have been for bugs in their code. A lot of software makers just don't even release patches. You're kind of on your own. As is, whereas, hope it works for you. Last but not least, in the security news bites for the week, hackers claim that they have breached T-Mobile more than 100 times just in 2022. Don't know whether this is true. To be honest with you, it would not surprise me. T-Mobile's cybersecurity record is pretty poor. People go there not because their data and their information and their phones are secure, but rather because the price is a little bit less than the competition. Um, if you're willing to go, if whatever the number is, 10 or 20% less is worth it to you to put all your information and your device at risk, as well as remember your phone is the device is typically used to reset the passwords on all of your other accounts. So put all your other accounts at risk. If that's worth it for 10 or 20%, then stick with T-Mobile. If it's not, consider moving, even though that's a pain in the butt. Um, Google has been accused by the Justice Department of destroying evidence even after they promised to stop. This has, and some of it is overt and some of it is covert, but I think all of it is intentional. I can't prove that, of course. We'll leave that for the courts to figure out. But the ultimate thing that could happen out of this is if a judge believes what the Justice Department is saying, and this goes to trial, or even if this is a judge is making a decision, he can or she can tell the jury in the instructions that you should assume that the fact that they were destroying evidence means that they are guilty, basically. It says you should assume that the evidence they destroyed was not in their favor, and you can just assume that. And if this is a judge making a decision, then he or she can assume that. Not a great situation for Google to be in. I suspect they didn't think they were going to get caught, but they did. Next, Ford is seeking a patent on technology to disable your car if you miss a payment. All of a sudden, your car won't work. Of course, with smart cars and all that, that's not a big surprise that they could do that. But now they're wanting to patent that. So I don't know. Maybe you should consider whether you want to buy a Ford car or not. This is kind of in the mold of John Deere. These guys have figured out that they are in the driver's seat, so to speak, and have the ability to do this. And as long as consumers don't push back and continue buying their products, then I guess there's no incentive for them to stop. Obviously, any of the smart car makers could do this. The fact that they are overtly trying to patent the technology says that they obviously think this is important to them. Next, Russia has banned their own chat app, Telegram, as well as a whole bunch of Western and even Chinese chat apps like WeChat. I suspect this group of apps, which I think is about 9 or 10 apps, are all apps that support encrypted chat. And so what they're trying to do is just basically get rid of encrypted chat. Now, the challenge they have is nowadays with satellite-based internet like Tesla's stuff, Starlink, that becomes much harder to block. But they have to block every single VPN. They've been trying to block the Proton VPN. They have not succeeded at that. So as long as people can get out of the country on the internet, then that's problematic. Now, obviously, they could turn off the internet, but their economy is pretty much in a shambles right now. Anyway, I don't think that turning off the internet would either make consumers very happy or make the businesses that use the internet very happy. So we shall see what happens there. And last, wiper malware, which is malware which is designed just to do destruction, became pretty popular just in the Russia-Ukraine area after the war started, but kind of the genie is out of the bottle now, and it's global, worldwide, and apparently the numbers of infections are just kind of going through the roof. So that's one case where I always say about ransomware nowadays that having good backups is not adequate, but for wiper malware, having good backups is actually perfectly adequate. So the thing we're seeing is a lot of times people think they have good backups and they discover, well, not really. They're kind of sort of good in the places where they are, not so good in other places. So, check your backups to make sure they really work. That's all I have for now. Until next time, thanks for listening and stay safe.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.